It's time!
What's up, guys? We got UFC 314 Volkanovski versus Lopes full card picks and betting breakdown. And I'm excited for this week's card. There are a ton of great matchups. This card is absolutely stacked from top to bottom. I am excited to go ahead and break this down for you guys. So let's go ahead and jump right into it with the first bout of the night being Nora Cornolle versus Hailey Cowan, in which the pick for me is going to be Nora Cornolle over Hailey Cowan. Though coming off the loss to Cavalcanti, Cavalcanti is a talented fighter with some stellar striking abilities and some good grappling abilities. So it's no knock on Nora Cornolle. She went toe-to-toe with a very talented striker and very talented grappler as well, and had some moments in that fight. And then you have the win before that over Melissa Mullins, where she had a brutal knee up the middle, dropped Melissa Mullins, and then followed it up with some nice ground and pound to get the technical knockout victory. And then you have the win over Jocelyn Edwards in her UFC debut. She went up against a tough, gritty veteran in Jocelyn Edwards and ends up winning in her UFC debut. Nora Cornolle is a very talented, well-rounded individual with some phenomenal striking abilities, especially with her Muay Thai-esque fight style. I feel like it really helps her, especially to use those striking or the leg kicks of hers. She uses them so good. She's very quick and snappy with her high and low kicks. She's very good with her 1-2 down the middle. She knows how to mix it up to the head and to the body very, very well. And she has a very good grappling skill set to fall back on if she needs to. She has strong takedowns. She knows how to maintain control of you when she gets you down to the ground. She also has good scrambles from bottom. If she's taken down, she knows how to scramble very, very well, which is what we saw in the Edwards fight. She scrambled many, many times and ended up on top of Edwards and looked phenomenal in that fight. And then on the other side of it, you have Hailey Cowan, who is coming off of the loss to Jamie Lynn Horth, where she got absolutely picked apart on the feet. Jamie landed a nice high head kick that actually tagged Cowan, and I feel like Nora Cornolle can land that exact same high kick and land it flush on Hailey Cowan. I really do. Especially seeing as how Cowan doesn't really move her head off the center line. And something else I do want to note about Cowan is that after round one, you could see her hands start slowly dropping each round. They start getting lower and lower. And you cannot do that against somebody like Nora Cornolle, who has stellar striking skills and good grappling skills. You're leaving openings for a takedown. You're leaving openings for that 1-2 down the middle, which she has a phenomenal 1-2 down the middle. So I feel like there's too many red flags on the side of Cowan, especially seeing as she's unproven. She leaves her head on the center line. She keeps her hands down way too low. I gotta go with the side of Nora Cornolle. I really feel like that she is the better fighter. She has more skill than Hailey Cowan, and she brings more toughness in her fight style. So give me Nora Cornolle to beat Hailey Cowan. And let's go ahead and look at the odds for this fight, with Nora Cornolle sitting at a -170, Hailey Cowan sitting at a +145. I like the side of Nora Cornolle. I really think that she can outstrike and outgrapple Hailey in some key timely moments. Over 2.5 sitting at a -185, under 2.5 sitting at a +155. I like the over 2.5. I think it's Nora Cornolle getting the better of Hailey Cowan, not only in the striking department, but also in the grappling department, outworking her, outstriking her, and getting the better of Hailey Cowan via decision. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Tresean Gore versus Marco Tulio. And the pick for me is going to be Marco Tulio. He is a knockout artist, especially in the UFC. He's knocked out Potteria, followed him up with some nasty ground and pound, knocked out Duclos with a spinning kick, and then followed it up with ground and pound. Knockout in LFA, where he landed a straight right, followed it up with some ground and pound. So Marco Tulio is an exceptional striker with some devastating knockout power and some deadly accurate shots. I feel like Marco Tulio is a phenomenal fighter on the feet And not to mention, he has a good grappling skill set as well. So I feel like he is a very well-rounded fighter that is going to go in here and absolutely starch a Tresean Gore. Absolutely starch Tresean Gore. Tresean Gore is no bum, no slouch, don't get me wrong. But he is not only at a speed disadvantage, I feel like he's at a striking disadvantage. I feel like Marco Tulio is, again, more accurate. He's more technical. He's better at setting up his shots. So I got to give him the striking advantage. I get that Tresean Gore is quick. He is explosive. But I feel like he doesn't put himself in the best of spots to use his explosiveness to the best of his abilities. So give me Marco Tulio to beat a Tresean Gore who really hasn't done much in the UFC. He beat Cornolle, but Cornolle's a bum. And then you have the win over Fremd, where he submitted him 2 years and 5 months ago. So a huge layoff in between Cornolle and Josh Fremd. And then you have the loss to Brundage and Battle. I feel like Marco Tulio could land a similar overhand right, but I really think it's going to be a counter shot because of the fact of how overzealous Tresean Gore gets at times. I think you could see him getting overzealous, and you could see a shot from the side of Marco Tulio as Tresean Gore gets a little bit overzealous with his striking, and he finds a clean counter shot, knocking out Tresean Gore flat on his back. So give me Marco Tulio via knockout. And let's go ahead and run it to the odds on this fight. With Tresean Gore sitting at a plus 270, Marco Tulio sitting at a negative 330. I agree with the odds. I really feel as though Marco Tulio is going to be the better fighter. He has more tools in his tool bag, and I feel like he is going to be able to close the distance and land some nice shots on a Tresean Gore, who sometimes just gets a little bit overzealous, leaving him open to some shots straight down the middle. Over 1.5 sitting at a negative 145. Under 1.5 sitting at a plus 115. I would probably go with the under 2.5 if you could find that. I think Marco Tulio is live to finish Tresean Gore early. And I think it's going to happen. I really do. I see Tresean Gore getting a bit overzealous or getting a little bit frustrated with not being able to hit Marco Tulio, leaving himself open to a counter shot. And I see Marco Tulio landing a clean counter shot and putting Tresean Gore clean out on his back. So give me Marco Tulio via knockout. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Sumudaerji versus Mitch Raposo. And in this one, I was going back and forth between these two, in which I am going with Sumudaerji to beat Mitch Raposo. The reason I am going with Sumudaerji, though he's coming off of 3 losses, take into account these 3 losses are up against some very good competition. Charles Johnson, top 15 ranked. Tim Elliott, he's a pretty talented individual with some very stellar submission skills. And then you have the loss to Matt Schnell, where he got submitted as well. Something about Sumudaerji, which we all know, is that he has a suspect grappling game. He isn't the best grappler, but he is a very talented striker. And I feel like that's where he is going to have the complete and utter advantage here against Mitch Raposo. Mitch Raposo is going to look to take this down to the ground, but I feel like with the reach advantage, Sumudaerji is going to be able to pop off that jab, maintain that distance, really start getting that striking and that range down, and not letting Mitch Raposo enter and exit the pocket very easily, making him pay for it each and every time. And I feel like Sumudaerji can do just that. He is a very talented striker. Mitch Raposo is somebody who also tends to rely more on his striking than his grappling. He doesn't really like to grapple. He is more of a striker. He likes to slug it out in the pocket, likes to throw down, and will sometimes abandon the side of grappling. And I feel like that's a big red flag here against somebody like Sumudaerji, who has way better striking skills than a Mitch Raposo and has a clear reach advantage. So I feel like Mitch Raposo is going to look to grapple. He's going to look to take this down to the ground. I think he's going to run into a couple of snubs from the side of Sumudaerji and ultimately try and sit there and brawl it out like he tends to do at times. And I feel like he's going to get caught and get tagged because, who has Mitch Raposo really beat? He lost to Andre Lima, which it says split decision, but he got absolutely worked all 3 rounds. He's won against a Valentine where the guy looked like an old man. He looked like he was not even close to being a good fighter. And Mitch Raposo in this fight took him down and just got right back up, just completely abandoned the grappling side of things and just struck with him. And then in this fight with Carvalho, same thing. A bum that is not good at all and just absolutely outstruck him, took him down, abandoned the grappling, and just outstruck him. But again, the competition, if you look at the competition of Mitch Raposo, he is fighting a bunch of bums compared to Sumudaerji, who is fighting Charles Johnson, Tim Elliott, Matt Schnell. Yes, Mitch Raposo fought Andre Lima, but he got absolutely dominated. And I feel like here, he is going to get worked by a Sumudaerji, especially if he does what he tends to do and tries to slug it out and tries to outstrike a Sumudaerji. He's going to get caught and he's going to get tagged. So give me Sumudaerji to beat Mitch Raposo. And let's go ahead and look at the odds for this fight. With Sumudaerji sitting at a -185, Mitch Raposo sitting at a +160. Like I said, I like Sumudaerji. I really think he has a clear-cut striking advantage, and I think he's going to piece and pick apart a Mitch Raposo, who is a very mediocre fighter, to be completely honest. Over 2.5 sitting at a -190, under 2.5 sitting at a +160. I like the side of under, but I also like the side of over. I would stick away from rounds on this because I think Sumudaerji is live to knock out Mitch Raposo, especially with that length advantage and the striking of Sumudaerji. I feel like he could really catch and put down Mitch Raposo, but I'm going to say decision is the call. I think decision is more than likely to happen, but he is live to knock out a Mitch Raposo who is relatively unproven. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card. In Sedriques Dumas versus Michał Oleksiejczuk. And again, I gotta go with the side of Michał Oleksiejczuk. Somebody coming off of 3 losses, I am going with again in Michał Oleksiejczuk. Though coming off of these 3 losses, they are to some high-level competition. Shada Magomedov, one of the most deadly strikers in the division. Then you have Kevin Holland, which he ended up dropping before getting submitted via armbar before this. And then the loss to Michał Pieta, who took his back and rear naked choked him. Which, I mean, Michał Oleksiejczuk is similar to Sumudaerji in the sense that he doesn't really have the greatest grappling abilities. That is kind of somewhere where he has a hole in his game, if you will. But he does have stellar striking abilities, and I feel like that is going to give him the upper hand here against Sedriques Dumas, who honestly, in my opinion, is very mediocre in both the striking and the grappling. I feel like he doesn't really bring a very heavy skill set in either one of the departments. I feel like somebody like Michał Oleksiejczuk has a clear-cut striking advantage. He has the quicker hands. He has the cleaner, quicker combinations. He also has the nastier inside boxing over a Sedriques Dumas. So I feel like clear striking advantage for the side of Oleksiejczuk. He has the knockout power. He has the accuracy. He has the boxing side of it. So I feel like on the feet, he is the better fighter. In terms of grappling, like I said, he has a suspect grappling game. He isn't the best in terms of that, but I feel like Dumas doesn't have the greatest grappling, and I feel like Oleksiejczuk can fare just as well in the grappling department as Dumas. I really do. Dumas got out-grappled and outstruck by a Josh Fremd. So I feel like Michał Oleksiejczuk can definitely outstrike him and can definitely grapple with him in the sense of defensively snubbing the takedowns and just keeping it on the feet. It's not like he has to go in and take him down. No, he can just defensively snub the takedowns, keep this on the feet where he has the advantage, and outstrike and piece and pick apart a Sedriques Dumas. So give me Michał Oleksiejczuk to beat Sedriques Dumas. I really feel like Sedriques is very squared as he fights. He's very decent with his striking, don't get me wrong. He has a nice 1-2 and a nice jab and mixes up his shots relatively well. but I really feel like he is somebody who is very squared off, very prone to these left hooks, especially in the fight against Tululin. He took a nice left hook multiple times. In the fight against Ruziboev, got absolutely starched by an uppercut. And then you have the fight against Abu Azatar, where he took some nasty lefts as well. And Cody Brundage, same thing. I mean, I really feel like Dumas is somebody who is prone to these left hooks, and I feel like somebody like Michał Oleksiejczuk has some nasty left hooks that could absolutely sit down Sedriques Dumas, and I believe he will. Honestly, I really feel as though Michał Oleksiejczuk could definitely land a knockout finish over a Sedriques Dumas who just really is mediocre in both the striking and the grappling side of things. I mean, who has he really beaten? He beat a Cody Brundage who was pulling Gilly 24/7. I mean, legitimately every single takedown attempt, Cody Brundage was just hopping Gilly and was just giving him the win. And then you have the win over Abu Azatar, which was an alright win, but nothing crazy. I mean, Azatar isn't even really good at all. And then you have the win over Denis Tululin, who is another mediocre prospect that is 11-9, 10-10. He's awful. So I feel like somebody like Sedriques Dumas has not faced the best competition and is coming in here against Michał Oleksiejczuk, who is on a losing streak, but he's on a losing streak against the best of the best and has some of the best striking in the division. So give me Michał Oleksiejczuk to run over a Sedriques Dumas and actually knock him out with a clean left hook, which is what Sedriques Dumas is completely prone to. And let's go ahead and look at the odds for this fight, with Michał Oleksiejczuk sitting at a -190, Sedriques Dumas sitting at a +165. I like Oleksiejczuk. I really think he's at a clear-cut striking advantage. I think he can keep up with the grappling side of things from Sedriques Dumas, who got out-grappled and out-struck by a Josh Fremd. I just don't see him beating a Michał Oleksiejczuk. Over 1.5 sitting at a -125, under 1.5 sitting at a -105. This fight, I would stick away from the rounds. I wouldn't even touch the rounds. I think Michał Oleksiejczuk runs over Sedriques Dumas and lands a clean left hook that absolutely dusts a Sedriques Dumas and knocks him clean out. Let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Darren Elkins versus Julian Erosa. And the pick for me is going to be Julian Erosa over Darren Elkins. I think that Julian Erosa is a very quality striker with that long, stiff jab. He likes to strike from the outside. He has very good combinations. He knows how to mix it up to the head and to the body. He also has some nice, snappy high and low kicks. And he has a very good grappling skill set as well. So I gotta favor the side of Erosa. I really feel as though he's gonna be at a speed advantage. I think striking-wise, he's going to be the cleaner, quicker, more accurate striker. And he has good grappling to fall back on if he has any trouble in the striking department. So I got to favor the side of Erosa. Erosa has some of the nastiest jiu-jitsu, especially with the gillies. Oh my God, he can grab you and he will not let you go, and you will absolutely tap. I feel like somebody like Erosa could easily get a guillotine finish over a Darren Elkins, who honestly was super relentless with his takedowns, leaving easy guillotine openings, especially in the last fight. If you guys saw the Daniel Pineda, Darren Elkins time and time again got twisted into a guillotine multiple times. Yes, he ended up fighting out of it, don't get me wrong, but not every time are you going to fight out of a guillotine, especially against a Julian Erosa. Erosa has some nasty, nasty guillotines. One of the nastiest in the UFC. So I feel like Darren Elkins, who's prone to being too relentless with his takedowns, leaves a clear opening for a guillotine. And you could see a possible submission finish from Julian Erosa. But I also think that he's going to be smart enough in trying to keep this on the feet, where he has the complete and utter advantage, outstriking and outworking a Darren Elkins. Darren Elkins is tough and gritty, don't get me wrong, but I mean, his striking skills really aren't the best. He's going to look to just grapple a Julian Arosa, out-grapple him. I don't see that happening. I feel like Julian Arosa is going to get the better of Darren Elkins in the striking department, even landing some key, timely takedowns if need be, and garnering some control time over a Darren Elkins. Give me Julian Arosa to outwork, outstrike, and outdog a Darren Elkins who is tough and gritty, but ultimately I believe is going to lose. And let's go ahead and look at the odds for this fight with Julian Arosa sitting at a -350. Darren Elkins sitting at a +285. I like the side of Julian Arosa. I really feel as though he has a clear-cut striking advantage and a speed advantage, as well as being able to enter and exit the pocket against Darren Elkins. I think he's going to use that to the best of his ability, getting the better of Darren Elkins. Over 2.5 sitting at a -115. Under 2.5 sitting at a -115 as well. I like the side of the over. I think it's going to be a tit-for-tat, back-and-forth fight where Julian Arosa wins it via decision over a tough, gritty opponent in Darren Elkins. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Chase Hooper versus Jim Miller. This is a phenomenal matchup in which I am going with Chase Hooper to beat Jim Miller. I feel like Chase Hooper, the up-and-coming prospect, has been looking absolutely phenomenal with wins over Clay Guida via submission, the submission over Borishev, where he ended up dropping him before submitting him, and then the win over Jordan Levitt, where he submitted him as well. And then you have the win over Fiora before that. I mean, Chase Hooper has really started to come into his striking side of things. His grappling game, we already knew, is very, very good, but he's really starting to develop the striking side of things, and he's starting to look good in both aspects of the fight game, striking and grappling. In his last fight against Clay Guida, that armbar, how he transitioned from rear naked choke to armbar, looked absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I mean, Chase Hooper is an incredible prospect that I believe is going to have a grappling advantage over Jim Miller. In terms of striking, like I said, his striking skills are developing. They're becoming a lot better. He's setting up his shots a lot cleaner. His combinations are becoming a lot quicker, a lot more accurate. So I gotta favor the side of Chase Hooper. I really feel as though he's really developing into this really well-rounded prospect, and I feel like he's going to beat the old-timer in Jim Miller. I get that Jim Miller is no bum, no slouch, but again, he's coming to the later end of his career. He is not looking slow or sluggish, don't get me wrong, but he just really is at a speed and explosive disadvantage. I really feel as though Damon Jackson, he submitted him, yes. His grappling skills are A1, but I feel like Chase Hooper is going to be able to land some key takedowns in some timely situations, garner that control time, may not get the submission finish, but still will be able to get the better of Jim Miller, not only in the grappling department, but also in the striking department. I really think so. Jim Miller has some nasty knockout power, don't get me wrong, but I feel like Chase Hooper, being able to set up his shots, being quicker, more accurate to the target, will get the better of a Jim Miller who is going to be looking for those bombs on the feet, but I don't think that there's going to be enough openings. Whereas Chase Hooper, I feel like there's going to be a lot more openings with the striking and the grappling side of things, and I feel like he's going to be able to outstrike, outgrapple, and get the better of a Jim Miller in the 3 rounds. So let's get it. Let's go ahead and run it to these odds. With Chase Hooper sitting at a -800, Jim Miller sitting at a +575. I like Chase Hooper. I think he's at a speed and striking advantage. I think he can get the better of Jim Miller, not only in the striking department, but also in the grappling department. Over 1.5 sitting at a -166. Under 1.5 sitting at a +130. Over 2.5 sitting at a -105. Under 2.5 sitting at a -125. I like the side of under 2.5. I think that it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be close tit-for-tat battle, but I think Chase Hooper... honestly, I think Chase Hooper submits Jim Miller. I think he's going to find some key takedowns in some timely situations, and I think he's going to work to advance positions, and I think he could find the submission finish on Jim Miller. I really do. As the fight goes on, I favor the side of Chase Hooper, and I think as this fight goes on, you're going to see more mistakes from the side of Jim Miller, and I think Chase Hooper could find some key takedowns in some timely situations and find himself in a position to get the submission finish over a olden Jim Miller. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Vienna. Jairzinho versus Xiaonan Yan. I am going with Vienna Jairzinho. I mean, I really feel as though she is going to absolutely work a Xiaonan, especially with her relentless pressure and her relentless grappling. I just don't see Xiaonan getting the better of Vienna. I really don't. I think that Vienna is going to relentlessly, time and time again, put that pressure pace on Xiaonan, work for those takedowns, set up her shots on the feet to work for that takedown, get the takedown, garner control time, and end up pummeling a Xiaonan Yan, who is very stellar in the striking department, but when it comes to grappling, she isn't that good with the grappling. She really isn't. She lacks in the grappling department. When she's taken down, she struggles heavily to get back up to her feet. So I gotta favor the side of Vienna Jairzinho. She might be able to snub a couple takedowns, but as soon as she's taken down, she is not getting up off of the grasp of Vienna Jairzinho. So give me Vienna Jairzinho to beat Xiaonan Yan, especially coming off of some impressive submission finish. Amanda Lemos armbar, the win over Lupita Godinez, the win over Marina Rodriguez, and the win over Angela Hill. I mean, Vienna Jairzinho is a very talented individual that is going to look to absolutely out-grapple and outwork a Xiaonan Yan, and I believe she's going to do so. I really do. Xiaonan Yan, like I said, has stellar striking. Don't get me wrong. She's going to be looking to knock out Vienna Jairzinho on the feet, but I just think that she lacks too much in the grappling department. She's going to eventually get taken down. She lacks in the sense that she can't create space to get up out of the grasp of her opponents. And somebody like Vienna Jairzinho could easily advance positions, especially when she has her on the ground. So give me Vienna Jairzinho to outwork, outgrapple a Xiaonan Yan and get the better of her and possibly land a submission finish. I really feel as though she's going to submit a Xiaonan Yan who has a hole in her game, and that's the grappling game. So give me Vienna Jairzinho to outgrapple a Xiaonan Yan. And let's go ahead and look at the odds for this fight with Vienna Jairzinho sitting at a -144, Xiaonan Yan sitting at a +124. I like the side of Vienna Jairzinho. Like I said, she has a clear-cut grappling advantage. In terms of striking, I feel like she can fare well in the striking department against a Xiaonan Yan, kind of piecing and picking her apart, making sure to be very calm and calculated because of the fact that Xiaonan Yan has that devastating knockout power. I think she's going to be a lot more calm, a lot more calculated. She's going to find these takedowns. She's going to garner the control time, and she's going to absolutely work Xiaonan Yan on the ground. Give me Vienna Jairzinho. Over 2.5 sitting at a -180, under 2.5 sitting at a +150. I like Vienna Jairzinho, and I think she is live to win this via submission. But ultimately, no, I'm going to stick with submission. I think she's going to submit Xiaonan Yan. I think as soon as she gets her to the ground, Xiaonan Yan is a deer in headlights, and I think Vienna Jairzinho is going to advance positions and find the submission. So let's go ahead and run it to the next bout on this card in Dan Ige versus Sean Woodson. And the pick for me is going to be Sean Woodson over Dan Ige. Sean Woodson is on an absolute tear as of right now, knocking out Fernando Padilla, beating Alex Caracas before that, beating Charles Jourdain before that, and then beating Dennis Bazooka before that. He has some very, very impressive wins, and I feel like he could win here against Dan Ige. I really do. I get Dan Ige is a tough, gritty opponent, but Sean Woodson is so technical and so slick with his striking, and he brings a good, devastating knockout power as well. I feel like he can get the better of Dan Ige. He also has a huge reach advantage, so he can use that super long, stiff jab to maintain distance, but he can also close the distance really well. So he's not just good with his striking from distance, he's very good with his striking from that nasty inside boxing range. So I favor Sean Woodson in the striking department. In terms of grappling, he brings a good grappling skill set as well. So I gotta favor the side of Woodson. I really feel as though this is going to be a striking showcase where we could see Dan Ige mix in some grappling, because I feel like that's what he's gonna have to do to win this, because he's at a huge disadvantage in terms of reach. So I feel like Dan Ige is going to look to grapple. He's not going to be able to get Sean Woodson down to the ground. He's going to end up in a striking showcase where I believe he's going to get outstruck by a Sean Woodson who's a lot more slick and a lot more technical than a Dan Ige. But Dan Ige, don't get me wrong, has that brutal overhand that could drop anybody. But again, I feel like it's just, it's so looping that you could see it coming. And I feel like somebody like Sean Woodson with that reach advantage can maintain that distance, stick on the outside, get the better of Dan Ige, outstriking him and out working him and picking him apart from distance. Give me Sean Woodson to be a Dan 50K Ige who is tough and gritty, but is going to ultimately lose. And let's go ahead and look at the odds with Dan Ige sitting at a plus 145. Sean Woodson sitting at a negative 170. I like Woodson, especially with that huge reach advantage. I really think that there's going to be a lot of striking, and I think it's going to favor the side of Sean Woodson. Over 2.5 sitting at a negative 250. Under 2.5 sitting at a plus 200. I like the over. I think it's going to be a very tit-for-tat back and forth war where Sean Woodson walks away with the W over Dan Ige via decision. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Nikita Krylov versus Dominick Reyes for what is his return. His return. Nikita Krylov is coming back after 2 years in a win over Ryan Spann, but I am not picking Nikita Krylov. I am picking Dominick Reyes. Nikita Krylov, like I said, coming off of that 2-year layoff, is going to be a lot worse in my opinion. I mean, I really feel as though Dominick Reyes coming in with those 2 knockout wins over Dustin Jacoby and Anthony Smith really gave him a kind of revival to his career. I feel like he's going to come in this really feeling up and Adam and ready for another victory to surge towards that top contender spot. I think that this is a revival of his career. I think that Dominick Reyes has some quality striking skills, has some devastating knockout power, has some deadly accurate shots, and some quick hands and clean combinations. So I like the side of Dominick Reyes in terms of striking. In terms of grappling, he has solid grappling defense. He has strong takedowns, and he knows how to maintain control of you when he takes you down. So I like the side of Dominick Reyes, especially knowing that he's at a speed and striking advantage. I feel like he is going to have this in the bag. Like I said, Nikita Krylov hasn't fought in 2 years? Yes, he submitted Ryan Spann. Yes, he beat Volkanovski. Yes, he beat Gustafsson. But again, these are two years ago. Damn near 3 years ago. Gustafsson was absolutely washed. His chin was completely gone in this fight. Then you have the win over Volkanovski 2 years and 5 months ago, which, don't get me wrong, was kind of impressive. But again, with the huge layoff, I really feel like he's going to be a lot slower, a lot more, how do I say it? A lot more clunkier. So I got to favor the side of Dominick Reyes. Not to mention Nikita Krylov, if you watch his fight, he tends to leave his chin up like this, and he tends to leave his head on the center line, not really moving it. So I feel like Dominick Reyes could absolutely starch a Nikita Krylov, and that is what I think is going to happen. I don't see Nikita Krylov getting the better of Dominick Reyes on the feet. I think he's going to look to try and out-grapple Dominick Reyes, but I think Dominick Reyes' grappling abilities hold up. I think he snubs the takedowns, leaves this to a striking showcase in which Dominick Reyes knocks out a Nikita Krylov. And let's go ahead and look at the odds for this fight. With Nikita Krylov sitting at a -190, Dominick Reyes sitting at a +165. Give me Dominick Reyes, especially sitting at a +165. That is money. He is so quick and explosive. I think he knocks out Nikita Krylov. Under 1.5, sitting at a +135. Over 1.5, sitting at a -165. Give me the under 1.5. I think Dominick Reyes clocks and knocks out a Nikita Krylov early in this fight. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Yair Rodriguez versus Patricio Pitbull. And this is a banger. A banger. I am going with Patricio Pitbull to beat Yair Rodriguez. If you guys do not know, Patricio is a Bellator savage. A Bellator savage. He was champion for years on years. I mean, no one was taking this guy out. He also did beat Michael Chandler back in the day in Bellator. Patricio Pitbull is a very talented, well-rounded fighter with some stellar striking skills and some phenomenal grappling skills as well. I like the side of Patricio Pitbull. I get that people are concerned because he is older and he's coming into the UFC a little bit later in his career, obviously. But I still think that he is very, very good in terms of striking and grappling. I think he can get it done here. I think that where Yair Rodriguez has holes is the grappling department, and I see Patricio Pitbull being able to mix in his striking with his grappling and finding success. I really do. I really feel as though Patricio Pitbull is very good is a very quality striker with very quick hands. He's got crafty combinations. He knows how to mix it up to the head and to the body. Not to mention, he has a very good grappling skill set to fall back on if he has any troubles in the striking department with Yair, which I don't believe he will. But even if he does, he has a grappling to fall back on. I really feel as though Patricio Pitbull, whether it's striking or grappling, I feel like he's going to be able to get the better of Yair. He's very good at closing the distance. I think he's going to be able to close that distance, tag Yair on the inside and exit. And then I feel like if needs be, he can also use his striking to set up his grappling and land some key timely takedowns and garner some control time. So give me Patricio Pitbull to beat Yair Rodriguez. Yair is, again, going to look to keep this on the feet, going to look to outstrike a Patricio Pitbull, and going to look to use those kicks to the best of his abilities. But I think that Patricio Pitbull, being smart and using the grappling side of things, could get the better of Yair, especially with those leg kicks. He could catch him, take him down off of him, or he could blast a single leg off of him as well. So give me Patricio Pitbull to beat the veteran in Yair Rodriguez. And let's go ahead and look at the odds for this fight, with Yair Rodriguez sitting at a -210, Patricio Pitbull sitting at a +180. I like the side of Patricio Pitbull. I think he has a clear-cut grappling advantage. I think in terms of striking, he's going to be able to enter and exit the pocket, going to be able to pick and piece apart a Yair. Even though he's smaller and has the reach disadvantage, I still feel like he's more explosive and quicker, and is going to be able to enter that pocket against a Yair. Yair mainly uses those kicks. Like I said, he's not very good with his punches. He's mainly a kicker. So again, that is why I'm favoring the side of Patricio Pitbull. Sitting at a +180, I think the odds are great. I think we're getting a great value for Patricio Pitbull. Over 2.5 sitting at a -160. Under 2.5 sitting at a +130. I like the side of over 2.5, but it's so sketchy. I think it's going to be a very close tit for tat back and forth, where Patricio Pitbull mixes in his striking with his grappling and ultimately finds success not only in the striking department but in the grappling department, getting the better of Yair Rodriguez and winning it via decision. And let's go ahead and run it to the next fight on this card in Bryce Mitchell versus Gene Silva. What is this? Like the 5th great fight back to back? I mean, this card is absolutely stacked, like I said. And let's go ahead and go with Gene Silva to beat Bryce Mitchell. I think that Gene Silva is going to knock out Bryce Mitchell. I really do. I think that Bryce Mitchell is going to look to grapple here, but I think that Gene Silva, his grappling is going to hold up. He's going to be able to snub the takedowns of Bryce Mitchell. I think he's going to keep this on the feet where he has the complete and utter advantage, and he's going to outstrike and pick and piece apart a Bryce Mitchell and ultimately find the knockout shot, landing it and dropping a Bryce Mitchell. Bryce, again, he kind of lacks in the striking department. He's a very good grappler, don't get me wrong. Like I said, he's going to be looking to take this down to the ground. But I feel like Gene Silva's grappling abilities will be able to hold up, be able to snub the takedowns of Bryce Mitchell, and be able to absolutely pick him apart on the feet. I really feel as though Gene Silva is at a complete and utter advantage in terms of the striking department. Bryce is very chinny. He doesn't really set up his shots the best and ends up leaving himself open to counter shots. And I feel like Gene Silva can land a clean counter shot, knocking out Bryce Mitchell. But ultimately, it's going to be the side of Gene Silva snubbing Bryce Mitchell, keeping this on the feet where he has a clear and utter advantage, and is going to end up knocking out a Bryce Mitchell who just honestly doesn't bring enough of a striking threat, relies more on the grappling side of things, and is going to get hurt by the up-and-coming prospect in Gene Silva. And let's go ahead and look at the odds for this fight, with Bryce Mitchell sitting at a plus 213, Gene Silva sitting at a negative 253. Like I said, Gene Silva, I think he's going to beat Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell, like I said, has a clear grappling advantage, but I feel like Gene Silva has a phenomenal grappling ability in the sense of defensively snubbing takedowns, keeping it on the feet, and outstriking his opponents, which is going to happen here against a Bryce Mitchell who lacks in the striking department, doesn't bring enough of a striking threat to worry about anything other than the grappling side of things. So give me Gene Silva to wipe and knock out a Bryce Mitchell. Plus 135 for the over 2.5, under 2.5 sitting at a negative 165. Give me the under 2.5. I think Gene Silva knocks out Bryce Mitchell, and I think he does it early. And let's go ahead and run it to the co-main event of the evening in Michał Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett. And I love this matchup. I think this is a great matchup where I'm going with Paddy Pimblett. I am. I think that Paddy Pimblett brings a very well-roundedness to his fight game, and I think that's going to give him the upper hand here. I think he has a complete and utter grappling advantage. I think that striking-wise, he is very slick and technical. He knows how to mix up his shots very, very well to the head and to the body. He also has very good snappy high and low kicks. He also is a very good grappler. So if he has any trouble in the striking department, he can throw it to the grappling department, taking down Michał Chandler and garnering some control time over him and at advancing positions and possibly finding a tricky submission. I like Paddy Pimblett wherever this fight goes. I believe that he's the more technical striker on the feet. I think he picks and chooses his shots very well. He's very calm and calculated. And in terms of grappling, he's going to have the quicker transitions, the trickier submissions, and the stronger takedowns. So give me Paddy Pimblett to beat Michał Chandler, especially coming off of a win over King Green where he submitted him early, the win over Tony Ferguson where he brutally dropped him and had some nice moments in terms of striking, then the win over Jared Gooden, and the win over Jordan Levitt. I mean, Paddy Pimblett is surging. He's up and coming. He is nasty. He is a very good striking skill set and grappling skill set. So give me Paddy Pimblett to beat Michał Chandler. Michał Chandler is no bum, no slouch. He is a very talented striker, but he is very wild and just thrives in a brawl. He's not somebody who is patient, calm, and calculated as much as he wants to say that. He is nothing like that. As soon as the cage doors close, he turns to a brawler. He likes to be in your face. He likes to slug it out. He likes to throw down. He throws these big looping shots. He has nasty knockout power, don't get me wrong. But again, he doesn't really use it to the best of his abilities. He tries to ultimately just brawl his way to the victory, and I don't see that winning him the fight here against somebody like Paddy Pimblett, who is super technical and super accurate with his striking. So give me Paddy Pimblett to beat a Michał Chandler, who is 2-4 in the UFC and really hasn't shown much in his time in the UFC. So give me Paddy Pimblett to beat Michał Chandler. And let's go ahead and run it to the odds with Michael Chandler sitting at a plus 142. Paddy Pimblett sitting at a negative 162. I like Paddy Pimblett. I think he has more tools in his tool bags. I think he brings a more well-roundedness to his fight game over Michael Chandler, who is just kind of honestly mediocre. Doesn't really bring a very good striking threat. He just throws these lugging bombs hoping that they hit. And then in terms of grappling, I mean, he has decent grappling. But again, I feel like Paddy Pimblett is better wherever this fight goes. He's more technical. He's more accurate. He's more calm, calculated, and patient. So give me Paddy Pimblett to stay patient, to stay calm, to stay calculated, and piece and pick apart a Michael Chandler and find some key, timely takedowns in the mix of it and possibly land a submission finish. I really feel as though Paddy Pimblett has a clear-cut grappling advantage, and he's going to use it to the best of his ability and find some key takedowns and submit a Michael Chandler in the mix of his striking exchange successes. Over 1.5 sitting at a negative 170, under 1.5 sitting at a plus 140, over 2.5 sitting at a plus 118, under 2.5 sitting at a negative 150, over 3.5 sitting at a plus 190, under 3.5 sitting at a negative 260, over 4.5 sitting at a plus 290, under 4.5 sitting at a negative 435. I like the side of under 3.5 sitting at a negative 260. I think Paddy Pimblett outstrikes him, finds a key, timely takedown, takes him down, advances position, and finds the tricky submission. Give me Paddy Pimblett via submission. And let's go ahead and run it to the main event of the evening. If you guys haven't, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and make sure you guys share with a family member, share with an aunt, share with an uncle, share with your grandma, share with your friend down the street, share with everybody. Make sure you guys share, and also let me know what you guys think of the video in the comments. But let's go ahead and jump to this main event in Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes, in which I am picking Diego Lopes to beat Alexander Volkanovski, which is going to be a huge disappointment to a lot of you guys. But listen, Diego Lopes is a up-and-coming savage with phenomenal striking abilities, phenomenal grappling abilities. He is phenomenal anywhere this fight goes. I really feel like he brings a really stellar, well-roundedness to his fight game. I think that striking-wise, he is going to be more explosive and a lot quicker than Volkanovski. Not to mention, he brings a good grappling threat, so he could take down Volkanovski. He could work to advanced positions and find a tricky submission. But ultimately, I think it's going to be a tit-for-tat, back-and-forth warfare where I believe that Diego Lopes is either going to win this via decision or via knockout. I think that he could catch him early. He has that devastating knockout power. He's deadly accurate with his shots. He knows how to set up his shots very, very cleanly and use his combinations to the best of his ability. So give me Diego Lopes to beat a Alexander Volkanovski, who has had a rough time as of lately, but let's not forget what kind of dog and what kind of savage Volkanovski is. Yes, he lost to Topuria, but he came off of that lost to Makhachev via head kick before that and took it kind of on short notice, so that could have definitely had something to do with it. But either way, 2 brutal losses in a row via knockout, the knockout over Rodriguez, and then the loss to Makhachev before that the first time. Volkanovski is a veteran in the game with some very good striking and very good grappling. Don't get me wrong. I really feel as though this is going to be a very close tit for tat back and forth fight where I think Diego Lopes either catches him early or he could even win via decision. I know a lot of you guys are getting onto Diego Lopes because of the cardio side of things, but dude, you cannot take into account this Dan Ige cardio situation. He dropped weight all the way to 145, then tried to bulk up to 160, I believe, to make weight with Dan Ige. Of course, he hasn't fought at 160, so he's going to be a lot slower, and the cardio is going to start being an issue because of the fact that he's putting on weight within a couple hours, and he still ends up going in there and beating somebody at their normal weight who is a savage and a dog amongst dogs in Dan Ige. He essentially went in there and beat somebody at his own weight class. Yes, he had the full camp, so I'll give Ige that side of things. I'll give Ige that side of things because Diego Lopes had a full camp. But either way, He came in, was dropping weight, adding weight, and doing a lot of fluctuations right before the fight. So cardio in this fight should not have a outcome in the sense of this fight here against Volkanovski. So give me Diego Lopes to outwork, outstrike, and pick apart a Alexander Volkanovski, getting the better of him, not only in the striking department, but also in the grappling department. I think that dream, believe, and make it happen is coming to life and coming to fruition. Give me Diego Lopes. And let's go ahead and look at the odds for this fight. With Volkanovski sitting at a negative 125, Lopes sitting at a plus 105. So a lot of money coming in on the side of Lopes as of lately, because he was sitting at a negative 110 or plus 110, plus 120 earlier. So some money coming on the side of Diego Lopes, and I completely agree. I think that he's going to have the speed and explosive advantage over a Alex Volkanovski, who has gotten some brutal losses as of lately, and we don't know how his chin is. So I got to ride with the side of Diego Lopes. I think that he can outstrike, outwork, and pick apart a Volkanovski, mixing in some key timely takedowns and landing them. Lopes has been working with the Oklahoma State wrestling team, so you know his grappling and wrestling is very, very good, especially seeing as they just recently won and had a huge upset. So do keep that in mind. I think Diego Lopes is live to win over Alexander Volkanovski. Over 1.5 sitting at a negative 525, over 2.5 sitting at a negative 260, over 3.5 sitting at a negative 150, over 4.5 sitting at a negative 104. Under 1.5 sitting at a plus 340, under 2.5 sitting at a plus 200, under 3.5 sitting at a plus 115, under 4.5 sitting at a negative 122. I like the side of Diego Lopes to beat Volkanovski. I think that he's going to do it via decision, which a lot of people may not believe, but I think that Diego Lopes can outstrike, outwork, and outdog a Alexander Volkanovski over the 5 rounds, getting the better of him and winning it via decision. And if you guys haven't, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.